Hey everybody, it's Chugga Conroy. Welcome back to more Okamiden. In the last episode, we wrapped up this tale and set sail for the Celestial Plane, but that is not everything that I have to show. There, you might notice, just like in Okami when you had the presents for me soon, we now have gifts for Mishaku that we can select on the main menu screen. This isn't anything all that major. You can listen to the game soundtrack. You know, you have a lot of different ones right here. Oddly, the Gura Shuffle and Playing with Thunder are the last two songs. This is the save screen. I have no idea why they did that. But if you ever want to listen to the game soundtrack, I don't really recommend listening to it in the game. I recommend getting a hold of the Okamiden OST if you can find it, which I personally own a copy of it, which I love that soundtrack to pieces. I got it back when you could still get it from Capcom of Japan, and it was one of the best soundtracks I've ever bought. And you also have Okamiden Scrolls. Now, this is basically just official art, you know, just nothing really more complicated than that. Okamiden, unfortunately, never got an official art book, and I had to use some art from Okami for some episodes whenever I was showing art, because a lot of this art has not been released on the internet in full resolution, or flat out, some enemies don't have any official art at all. If you can believe it, Akuro himself has no official art except for this picture. Even though he has a sprite in the bestiary, he does not have any kind of official art, so yeah, if you want to look through all this, I am not going to show every picture, because most of them actually got shown in the LP, but I just kind of wanted to show that that's there. You get this for just finishing the game normally. But what about getting 100%? We worked pretty dang hard to get 100%, and a lot of the stuff was missable. So how about we go ahead and load up our save file here, and before getting into exactly what you get for 100%, I would like to go over just what you get for finishing the game to start off. I think that's just kind of fair. Now, your money carries over, your regular items do not carry over, your key items do not carry over. However, because your money carries over, I don't really think it's any big deal that your regular items don't carry over. But aside from that, for just completing the game, you will get a new Divine Instrument. So you do not just start with Divine Retribution. There is a fourth type of Divine Instrument. I know, unexpected, right? It is called the Providence Crystal, which should look familiar to you right away. It is the Divine Instrument that Akuro used against us in the final battle. I'm not going to be showing it in a battle just because I don't really feel that necessary. As you can see here, it travels extremely far, farther than the Rosary. It does more damage than the Glaive as well, so it is hands down the best type of Divine Instrument. I should also mention that it is homing on any target. As you can see there, I was able to shoot those pots really easily from that far away from distance. That should give you an idea how good it is in battle. It does one different thing in battle, though, and that is that if you hold down the Y button to charge it, it will cycle between making Chibi a source of fire, ice, or lightning, meaning that you no longer have a need for Fire Burst, Thunderbolt, or theoretically Blizzard, even though that doesn't exist in this game. I kind of found that weird how it didn't exist. I guess maybe it was tough to program on the DS, I don't know. But you are effectively a source of those elemental powers, and you no longer need the optional brush technique, so it is, hands down, the most overpowered Divine Instrument, and of course the final boss had it. As for not doing any battles, there's the matter of the Feather Sword. Unfortunately, I think the Feather Sword's probably going to have to get the shaft because I just wasn't able to show it during the main story, and I couldn't really find a good place to show it during the main story. Plus here, you don't get the ability to get the other Divine Instruments right off the bat, so if they make a third Okami game and there's a Feather Sword in it, I'll just use the Feather Sword a lot, okay? Sound like a deal? Okay. Now in Kamiki Village, where the camera's a bit more close-up in some areas so I can show this, you might notice in your menu Karmic Transformations. Yes, they're back. For just beating Akuro, you get Black Sun, so that you can actually play as the final boss of Okamiden. Pretty cool. If I do say so, this is the true mark of a Capcom game. Every Capcom game seems to give you the ability to play as the final boss. Now, while I like this, I don't really play the game much with it, just because, I don't know, like, I guess it just kind of depends on my mood, but a lot of the time I find it just kind of weird to play through the game so peaceful as this one. At least early on it's peaceful, as the final boss. So, there's that one. So you get his weapon and you outright get what he looks like. I mean, look at that. That just looks weird, having Sakuya just petting Akuro and all that, and just being like, oh, you're so cute. I mean, just look at that. If anything, I just think it makes the cutscenes more funny, which I guess some of you might like that, but as for the other Karmic Transformations, Black Sun is what you get from finishing the game. Second, we have the Moon Tribe spell, which is interesting. Basically, to get this, you need to get all of the treasures in the game. Any artifact, you need to get all 30 of them, which will get you Basically looking as though you are made of an icy metal as if the Moon Tribe made you, plus you got lines on you as well, just like any Moon Tribe creation, which I think is pretty cool. It looks a bit polygonal, a bit more than Chibi does, but Moon Tribe stuff is kind of supposed to. So, this one gets my approval. Next up is the Artist Spell. You have to complete the Bestiary and get every history scroll. And getting that, you will get Ishaku's Armor. Yeah. So, these are pretty cool Karmic transformations. There were some cool ones in Okami, but right here, this kind of continues that staple in kind of a cool way. So, you get that. But what is exactly your reward for 100%, you might ask? I will very gladly show you. For completing everything, you will get the String of Beads, which makes your ink pod and solar energy never run out. So, same thing as in Okami, but you also get this. Something that we have never seen before. Shiranui as a pup. Yeah. Playing as Shiranui was the 100% reward in Okami. Here, you get to play as a puppy version of Shiranui. Something we've never actually seen before. So you get the markings on your face and body just as if you were Shiranui. So, really, really cool. I like this 100% reward quite a bit. That stuff aside, I should mention that there were a few things I never mentioned. Some people brought up that Akuro's mirror is based on slang from mythology, that there's a big thing about mirrors that make a copy of the soul of things' souls, which you see that a lot in Japanese games. It's a general trend with a lot of Japanese stories. Next thing that I want to talk about is a really interesting tidbit about the character Grimm that I don't think too many people are aware of. You kind of would only get this if you were Japanese to English translating stuff about Okamiden, and that's actually how I learned about it, was Tomato. I had him translating a lot of the text in Okamiden, and I also had him proofread my mythological notes, and he actually found that Grimm's Japanese name is a reference to somebody in history who is credited with writing one of the more popular versions of the story of Momotaro, which, as I've said, is like the biggest fairy tale in Japan many times. You know, the story of the boy who was born of a peach, he has a little peach headband, he gets animals as his retainers, and then he goes to what was Oni Island in Okami and slays the demons, which kind of begs the question as to where he actually went, because we destroyed Oni Island in Okami, but anyway, that's beside the point. What is not beside the point is that his Japanese name is a reference to the fairy tale author who is credited with writing one of the versions of Momotaro. His English name is Grimm. Fairy tale author, Grimm. Yeah, I thought that was really clever. So, his Japanese name is a reference to a really famous fairy tale author in Japan, whereas they named him Grimm after the Brothers Grimm in the US version. So, I thought that was incredibly clever and something that you guys would find really interesting. Another thing is that a lot of people have been asking me about Kuni's origin and where he comes from. Now, it's never explicitly stated in the game, but my personal theory is that Kuni was brought to Nippon from another time by Akuro's time travel abilities. Not only because it's found by the Moon Cave, which is kind of unusual, but Kuni also had a beta design that has clothing very different from what is found in Nippon. He looks very out of place with this character design. And the only reason that he didn't keep this character design is just simply because on the DS's screen resolution it was tough to tell who was Kuni when being viewed from behind or above, and they didn't want to change the cinematography and the cutscenes. So that to me is what makes the most sense. And honestly, finding a perfect vessel could not have been easy. He probably would have had to have gotten it from another time. Now, aside from that, while I'm kind of just playing through the story the way that I would here, as if I hadn't finished it, there is one last thing that I would like to bring up. And that is that Okamiden actually had a demo on the Nintendo channel on the Wii. Now, this demo, believe it or not, actually differs from the final game a lot more than you'd expect it to. This demo goes to the Cave of Nagi / River of Heavens, and it differs a lot from the final game. So what I'm going to do is, for the last thing that I do, I'm going to play that for you. So, to the Nintendo channel! Surprise to anyone who didn't think my setup was legitimate. Indeed it is legitimate, as I am recording this from, as you would guess, I could not be recording this from anything but a DS. Okay, so starting off this demo, it looks slightly different right off the bat. The Nintendo logo is there, which is in all DS demos that you get off Nintendo channel, which, by the way, is a free download off of the Wii Shop channel. Here we got some copyright text in the final game. You know, nothing out of the ordinary quite yet. Minor thing here is that trial version, wood right there, is only found unused in the Japanese version of Okamiden, not anywhere in the American version. So that's unique graphics, only to this demo, and in English at the very least. Now, you might notice that that text up there says copyright 2010. Now, what's interesting is that this demo actually was released in Japan in 2009, and they might have actually planned to release Okamiden in 2010 here as well. The reason why I say that is that there are unused images that show copyright dates in the American version, which say look for the full adventure in 2010, which is kind of weird. Now, you might also notice that Kuni's voice is a bit different. And you might also notice that I have 6 units of health and 6 ink pots this early in the game now. It's nothing unusual for them to give you more in the demo than you have in the final game, but so far, I would dismiss most of this as, you know, just standard stuff that you'd find in a demo. But this demo, like I said, differs a lot more than you'd expect. And my reason for saying that is, this demo was actually released in Japan as part of the Tokyo Game Show, over a year before Okamiden was released in Japan. So even though this demo predated the release only by a week in the US, it predated it by over a year in Japan, and this demo is in no way changed for America. This is the exact demo that was played then. So, we're going to get into the first major change right here. We're going to let Kuni off, and you'll see right here, you know, the graphics look a little bit different to start things off. Some things actually, I don't know if it's just my imagination, but there's some things that look a little bit smoother to me. I don't know if that's just my imagination, but whenever I've played this demo, I kind of noticed it oddly running smooth in the original game. Maybe they didn't have everything inserted into the game yet, or something like that. But, as you'll see here, we're going to fall down. You don't really have any choice but to fall down right here. So, now we're going to get the tutorial for using guidance, which was in a different area in the final game. But I don't want an explanation for using the Celestial Brush. I do not need your information, Kuni. So, what happens when we pull out the Celestial Brush? Well, listen to this. Yeah! That's different, isn't it? It is basically the Celestial Brush theme from Okami. Sounds completely different. I don't know, again, I don't know if it's my imagination, but I feel like the screen does snap down to the bottom screen a lot faster. I don't know if they wanted to give you more reaction time to pull out your stylus. I don't know if they ran into some kind of technical limitation that didn't allow them to do that in all areas or something like that. So, I'm not actually sure. There, Kuni hints that he'll explain more about Greenhorn mode at a later date, hinting that this was, you know, predating the release. So, we have different music there. But, right here you might notice there's also a rock in the way. Now, I don't think that this means that they plan on you having these powers sooner like some people have theorized. But what I think it is just that for people trying out this demo at a trade show, they just wanted to show off more of the game's mechanics, because if the only things you could use were Sunrise and Guidance, it wouldn't really be very impressive technology. Right here you might notice that this tree differs from the final game. Honestly, I wish they kept the trees looking like this, because with them just looking like black silhouettes of trees, they don't look quite as good as they did in Okami. I mean, I know it's a DS game, but right here you can see that they have basically how it looked in Okami perfect. I don't know why they changed it. So there he mentions being able to close flower buds. This puzzle's nowhere in the final game either, by the way, so this is another different thing. This layout is also a little bit different, you know, standardized stuff. So here we're going to put everything we've learned to the test. After that puzzle, you're going to notice a battle here. And while it might not seem different right off the bat, listen closely. Not only is that effect not in the final game, but this battle theme is different. So hopefully you got a good enough chance to listen to it right there. I should also mention that right here, bone clams are not fought in this area in the final game. Once again, I think this was just them thinking that green imps would not be very interesting to fight in the demo, and instead they wanted enemies that you were forced to draw on to finish them off. So I think that that is probably just what they were going for here. Now what I'm curious about is, can you floral finish them? Yeah, they instantly die from Power Slash, so this early in development they did have that. However, you do not get any kind of reward for doing it, meaning that they probably just removed it, so nothing too out of the ordinary there. I just kind of wanted to show that Kuni's voice is different. There's puzzles that are not present in the final game in this area. There's 2 songs that are not in the final game, even as unused content. So there's a lot more different than one would expect at first glance, so I think that's kind of cool. Kuni's voice also differs for his attack, as you can hear right there, but that is really about it. So now that we go through here, guess what? Demo already over. Thank you for playing. More thrilling adventures are coming your way. In the final game, the screen appears, but it says, look for the full adventure in 2010. And Okamiden was released in 2011, which begs the question, If they delayed the release of the game by that much, why are there so many dang translation errors in the final product? Okay, no. I shouldn't be that mad, but I'm sure the translators did all they could, and they might have been rushed because the 3DS was coming out, but all in all, I'm very glad that the sequel got made. It was better than I expected it to be, and I guess while we just kind of sit here on the title screen, I'll just say this. If they make a third Okami game, I will probably Let's Play it. Even if it's terrible, I will probably still Let's Play it because I would have enough to talk about as to why I don't like it for 70 episodes, as odd as that might be for me with how positive I typically am. So, I don't really have anything else to say here. I guess what I want in the third Okami game, I'd want it to take place in the Celestial Plane instead of Nippon again. Even though Nippon's a great world, I'd like a new world. And I'd maybe like cooperative play between Ami and Chibi, because Chibi's smaller, Ami is more physically able, and they can each command elements that the other cannot, so that could make for some interesting gameplay. Plus, on top of that, if Chibi was like a partner to Ami, that would let them continue the whole partner style of gameplay that they fleshed out more in Okamiden. So, yeah, that's mainly what I want to see. Oh, and also, make it for a console, please. Anyway, that's all I have to say. So, I'll see you guys back here soon, hopefully, and that does it for bonus content.